to Layer Podcasts. My name is Antonio and I'll be your host. In this episode 1, we had the chance to talk with Jo Barnard in East London. Jo is an industrial designer, a startup advisor, and the founder of product design agency for startups, Morrama. Both Jo and Morrama have a lovely output of industrial design work. Definitely take a look at their website, morrama.com. It was great to have this chat with Jo, understand where she comes from, how her career progressed, and how eventually she became a business owner and founder. So I really hope you enjoy as well. Hello, Jo. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome to the podcast. I'm sorry in advance. This is my first episode, so it might go completely wrong. It might be half and half, or it might be good.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Let's all fingers crossed. But yeah, thank you for having me. We're here at Us2 Adventures space at Morrama office in East London. And I'd like to first of all start with saying how much appreciation I have for what you do as a industrial designer, as a product designer.
Thank you very much.
A real product designer.
Real product, yes.
Because I'm a new product designer in a way, and I do digital and I work with UI and UX. And I just respect so much when you have to do something physical that you have to touch, which is so precise. And also if you make a mistake, you make a big mistake because it's scale.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can't send out an update.
Exactly, yeah. That's one of the things always that threaten me to digital is, if I make a mistake, I'll just go back and I'll correct and upload it back to the internet. But yeah, like I loved your work when I looked at your portfolio, and I was really keen to have a chat. So, and I was thinking of starting from exactly the beginning, and essentially, tell me a bit about you. Where were you born? Where you went to as a kid?
I'm born in the west of England. I lived in the same house my whole life growing up. I was a bit of a loner, I guess, as a kid. I didn't really feel like I fit in most places, but I think that just meant that I'd spent a lot of time playing with things rather than hanging out with people. I would always take stuff apart, sometimes put stuff back together, but there was quite a lot of broken DVD players and music related kit that I'd dismantled, hoping that I'd learn something about it, and couldn't put it back together again afterwards. Yeah. So I think that definitely fueled my interest in kind of how things work. Definitely, like, very much interested in that. Family of doctors and engineers. So I think there's just a kind of general fascination around, how things work, how people work, and especially the interaction between the two.
Okay, so was that the curiosity that attracted you to the products, like just trying to figure out how does this work? Was that the essence of opening things? Yeah.
I think the user experience and the aesthetic side of design has definitely come a little bit later on when I realized how important it is. But really, fundamentally, it was like the how things work type of thing. But I was also really into art and very creative. So at school, I did art and maths and physics, and I was really kind of set on doing art, but my family were very adamant that there was no future in that. So I did briefly think about engineering, but that's just because I felt like I could do it, but not was really passionate about it. And product design was this kind of happy middle ground that sat somewhere in between the two. And I mean, I loved it ever since.
Okay, so when you made a decision to become a product designer, was a mix then of passion for art, but also from the engineering background your family had, or it was just like something you stumbled upon?
We were lucky that product design was quite a big subject at school. So I did product design at GCSE, and then they did run it as an A-level because there was enough of us that wanted to do it. So I did product design A-level as well, and there wasn't that many schools around that actually did that. So I was lucky that I had that opportunity from the very beginning. And actually, every single person in my school who studied product design at A-level went to do it at university. So we obviously, I had a great teacher. So I think all of those things combined, and just it felt really natural that I got to do the things that I was good at, which was maths and physics, but the thing that I loved, which was the creative side, like combined together.
Right. No, it's really interesting. It's making me think that maybe it was, if you went to a different school, maybe that wouldn't be the outcome. It might have been down to the teacher or down to the school. And even if you had the same classes, if you probably had a different school, a way of approaching it, you might have become like completely different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so if you're talking about things that could have happened and that would have changed my whole life, probably would have been that I didn't actually choose originally to take product design at A-level. I was going to do sports. I really fancied my sports teacher and went up to them after doing my GCSEs and getting an A, having been predicted a B-, and bragging that I was just like, look, I got an A, then turned around and said, well, it's not an A-star. And I was just like, whew, that is a low blow. And I immediately crossed my name off the sports science list and went and signed up to product design. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things. It's very interesting looking back, but there's a lot of things that could have changed my career path, I think. But no, once I was on it, I was very happy.
Awesome. That's really good to know. So when was exactly that the point when you decided and you were sure about it? Because like I'm assuming a lot of designers kind of relate to that. You kind of decide what you think that you're going to have this career, but you're a bit unsure until you get to the job market or until you get to a certain stage of uni. When were you absolutely sure that you're happy with your choice?
I think there was never an uncertainty because I'd made my decisions and I was happy doing what I was doing. I think if you think too much about all the other opportunities that you're not taking up, then you can become very unsure about things. But I was naturally quite good at the technical side of product design. The more emotional kind of human side of things came a little bit later on, but fundamentally I knew how to design good products and also products that I know people would want, that kind of and very good at working with clients. And I knew that from an early stage, both at university when we had external clients coming in and setting us briefs, but also when I did my internship.
Awesome. All right. So, and then after uni, you left and you went to work for a company called Therefore for a while.
Yeah. So I did a sandwich course at uni. So I actually did a year at Therefore before I finished my degree. And I definitely learned more in a year in industry than I did at 3 years at university. But I think that's the case for most people. I went back to Therefore as a freelancer after I graduated. I didn't want to work full time for them, and I actually had a part-time job at Alex Hammond Studios in East London at the same time, where I was basically like an design assistant. Did lots and lots of skill-based stuff, so lots of CAD, lots of rendering, lots of sketching, lots of putting presentations together. Not a huge amount of actual designing, but it laid a really solid foundation for my skill set, which just means that I'm never like hindered by not being able to communicate my ideas.
Yeah. Okay, that's so. And how long were you doing that internship period until you were ready to? So you said you started working at Therefore as an intern, and then you became a freelancer. How long was that period of kind of internship and learning?
Soon as I'd finished my internship and I went back to university for a year, I knew that I didn't want to work for a consultancy, or I wasn't stimulated by that kind of work. Whether it had just been the fact that I wasn't allowed a huge amount of freedom and responsibility because I was an intern, and quite naturally I thought I was amazing at what I was doing, but I probably wasn't. Yeah. In fact, I know I wasn't. But anyway, I felt that I wanted to freelance. I wanted that flexibility. And I told everybody I knew that that's what I was going to do. So when the opportunity came up to have this kind of part-time flexible job, it was actually through one of my tutors, and someone had said, I'm looking for this in a graduate, and he immediately recommended me, just because he knew that that's what I was looking for. So I was really lucky in that I got that job straight away. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew that this would give me a financial stability in that I would have 2 days guaranteed, pay my rent, and I could work it out from there. And yeah, it was a great thing to do. I moved to East London, started work the day I graduated. In fact, yeah, the day I finished university.
Well, yeah, that's really good. Again, I met a lot of people at uni that they would get like a freelance project while they were doing uni, and they would say, "Oh, I cannot take this work because I'm finishing uni." And the whole point of uni is to get a job. So if you're already getting a project now or a job, like that's so much better than uni, as you were saying. That's a 1 year, and as an intern is like almost like 3 years at uni. You learn so much in this short amount of time. So it's really good that you jump straight into that. And so before you founded Morrama, how long were you working with freelancer, and what happened there?
There's not like a definitive moment that Morrama really started. Obviously, so whilst I was at university, I worked a lot with a guy called Rob, and we ran the student exhibition at the end of the year together. So we'd work together a little bit. We'd manage the team together. We knew each other's kind of skill sets, and they complemented each other's quite well. We then both moved into London, had various different jobs. He was interning, I was freelancing, and eventually, I'd said that I wanted to start Morrama, or start a business and have my own agency, and he was just like, yeah, that would be great. So one day he'd got bored of interning, and he just said, let's just do it now. And so I was like, it's fine, I'm ready when you are, because I had that flexibility, that I had clients, regular clients. I wasn't doing anything amazing. Nothing that I was, super proud of, or that would be my portfolio now. But it was money, and it was flexible. So I could then, Morrama kind of slowly happened in that I was freelancing, Rob was freelancing, then we freelanced together under the name Morrama, and then we got one big project in and realized that we had to send an invoice to a client, and that it didn't look professional if it came from my account or from Rob's account. So we then registered the company really quickly, set up a bank account really quickly, and sent our first invoice so that we could look like we actually had a company. And then that was it. Yeah, we had, Morrama was there. It wasn't, we didn't quit our jobs and work full time for it for about 6 months. So we both freelanced. In fact, we didn't really make any money from Morrama at all for the first 6 months, but it didn't really matter that much. And then slowly we just landed bigger and bigger projects.
I love the fact that you created the company out of the need of sending an invoice. Yeah. Because up until then, it's just work.
Well, you can set up a website in a day.
Yeah.
You can register a company name in 5 minutes. I think it costs like 30 quid or something, and then you have a letter from company's house saying congratulations, you've registered registered a company, and then after that it's like, well, that's all you really need. Like you kind of is. I don't like to fake it till you make it, but essentially one day we were both freelancers, and the next day we had a company called Morrama, and it really was that easy. Obviously, I mean, what is a company? Once we'd actually worked full time, and that was our main source of income, our only source of income, and we started hiring, that's when it feels like there's a company. But until that point, nobody needs to know.
Exactly, yeah. And how long did it take for that transition to happen? So you freelanced for 6 years, for 6 months, while both of you were had the company. When did you feel that Morrama was a company, when you had people, or what action did you really think, okay, this is it?
I think it was in about April or May that we started the company, and then I'd made the decision that I wanted to be working for Morrama full time by January the next year. So that gave me like 7 or 8 months. And essentially that was the target that I was aiming for. We hired somebody in about September of that year. So about 3 months in, we did hire somebody to work with us part-time. That was a big mistake. Not because of who they were, just because we weren't ready to hire anybody. We ended up, obviously, we had to guarantee their salary, but it meant that they were working 3 days a week. We were working what felt like 7 days a week, and we were getting paid about £300 to £500 a month. And they were getting paid what they were due for the full time.
Yeah.
So it was it lasted about 2 months, and then we had to say to them, well, unfortunately we made a mistake here, and that then obviously was a little bit extra money for us, but we were lucky in that we landed a big project at the very end of the year that would then set us up for the next kind of 8 months. And so I felt like I could finish with every other thing I was doing and work solely for Morrama.
Okay, that's really interesting. And again, I appreciate the fact that you made the mistake really early on.
Yeah.
I'm sure that whoever was working for you didn't really see it that way probably at the time, but
they went on and got a really good job in another firm. And I think that we gave them an opportunity to be in London and to live in London.
Yeah.
So I don't think they took it too badly. But yeah, I mean, I could have my hand up. It was a mistake. It felt like we wanted to hire somebody to feel that we had a business, and to feel that, once you have employees and you're an employer, you kind of have a company then. But actually, it wasn't necessary at all, and the workload we could have easily handled between us.
Yeah. So you founded Morrama, it became a company, became this business that you now own. First of all, the name Morrama, where does it come from?
So when we decided that we wanted to have a company, we obviously needed to come up with a name. We had no money. We had to find something that was free as a domain name, and we went through all of the kind of logical ones. We didn't want our names associated with it. We couldn't think of any quirky words that would come up in a search really easily. So we went to a random word generator and randomly generated the name Morrama. Okay, so
in a way, the childish can be in a way that the way that Donald Glover created his artistic name was just a wrapper website generator. Click, and it comes with something.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, there's companies out there with very, very well-known words. Map, Frog, they're design agencies, but you type in Frog, it's not going to be up near the top.
Yep.
Type in Morrama, I mean, there's no other company called Morrama. So, yeah, it kind of rolls off the tongue. It has a strong sounding starting letter, and more importantly, it looks nice as a word. So yeah, it just stuck. I mean, we didn't really know where the company was going. We didn't know how long it was going to last. We didn't know if it was going to go anywhere, and so we weren't going to spend crazy amounts of time working on that word.
Yeah.
Obviously now I can't get rid of it, but
yeah,
I do like it, so it's okay.
No, it's a lovely name, and I thought that probably there would have been a smart idea behind it, but it's amazing that it's just so random. Because one of the things that I feel a lot of us designers kind of relate to is when you want to start something, you need to start with a name. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to have a band with my friends. We spent 2 weeks discussing a name. We never had that band because of that.
Yeah.
And just do it and just try to push it.
Yes, I mean, I think that you could go wrong. It could go very wrong, but we decided that it was better to have something ambiguous that would allow us the freedom to kind of decide what the company was almost after that, rather than define it so specifically with a name.
Yeah, no, it's a great name, and it's a good story as well. Okay, so I really like the USP, the unique selling point of the company, and you call yourselves on your websites, we're a product design agency for startups. What do you like specifically about working with startups?
Well, I'll start with why we initially started working with startups, and that was, the need to have a unique selling point, obviously, but also the fact that the one thing that we could do was work very, very fast and work very, very cheap.
Yeah.
And obviously that was fine when we were willing to work 12 hours a day and we were working from our bedrooms or we were working from a coffee shop. Obviously now our overheads are slightly higher, so working very, very cheap isn't as possible. But that was initially why we separated ourselves out. Now I wouldn't imagine working in any other way, because the thing about startups is that they're so passionate. Like, you are dealing with the person who's fully invested in this idea. When you work for a big agency, you have had a brief from high on up the food chain that has been discussed amongst the directors. It has been passed down to someone to manage as their 9 to 5 job. Please manage this project. They have to report every decision back up the food chain, and then it has to come back down, and someone hasn't signed something off, and everything gets delayed, and everything's slow, and it drives me crazy, because it's just like, you have no idea how fast and how much energy could go into this project, but you're just dragging it back.
Yeah.
When you work with startups, it means everything, and therefore you can work really fast. They're in the office, they're excited, they're the energy behind the whole project. You can get immediate decisions, and most importantly, you get to start from the beginning. You get to build the real foundations of someone's company, not just the product, but the experience, the story, the branding, the messaging, the art direction, like everything. We get involved in all aspects of that creative process, and that's like, it's so exciting. That's
really good. But on the other hand of that, so it's amazing because you get to start something with really passionate people. But since a lot of startups don't really make it in the end, how many projects do you see to fruition with startups? Because I imagine a lot of them, unfortunately, don't make it because they either don't get funding or they miss the mark in some way.
What we've found is definitely in the early days, a lot of the projects didn't make it. I think that it was because we weren't very good at discerning which clients, which founders were actually like had the know-how and the financial backing to get somewhere. So now we are much better at discerning which clients are likely to actually make it than others, regardless of their product. Obviously, there's some amazing ideas out there, and people can have, incredible ideas, but they're just not quite the right person. It might be that they've got other responsibilities. They're not able to give 100% of their time. They don't have the funding or the know-how to get access to the funding, and the project just stalls to a halt. Now, quite a few of our projects, I would say, definitely more than 50% of our projects will go onto the market, and the others, I would say, aren't a definite no. It's just that there might be a period where they, press pause. People have kids, they have other things going on in their lives, there's a delay for some reason, or they're just a bit too slow, and then another product comes on the market that basically forces them to stop and rethink and maybe pivot onto something else. So there is always that downside, but what we've learned, especially over the last couple of 18 months, is how to spot the projects that are going to make it, and make sure we're jumping on those, and giving a lot of advice and support and knowledge to other companies, but basically saying we think that it's probably not going to work out for this and this reason.
Yeah, I think it's really important that you, apart from just doing the product and making sure that vision of the client comes to fruition, you also do that consultancy work, as like advising how you think that that product might work or not, and 50% seems pretty good. And I have no idea about it, but it seems pretty good to me. Products that come to the market. I'm assuming that there's a lot of constraints as well. Once you're done with the product, you need to then go into production, scale. There's a lot of money required to do that, apart from the design.
Yeah, we're really honest with our clients from the very beginning about the budgets that they would need. And so, I'd say of the projects that we've worked on this year, I'm pretty sure that almost all of them will go to market, except for the ones that we've worked on for big companies. So we've done some work for larger companies, and it's a lot more kind of exploratory stuff, concept stuff. We'll visualize products, but then they might decide that they can't fund the development process. Obviously, with startups, they need the information as soon as possible. So the first phase of work that we do is very much about establishing what is the design.
In this whole process of creating a company, and when you grew to this place as founder and owner of the company and running a company, apart from being a designer, which is something you learn in school to do, and you learn with your internship, there was a lot of learnings on how to set up a company, a lot of bureaucracy, paperwork, all those things. One thing that I'm really interested in learning, though, and finding out how you felt about it, is when you were creating your company for your employees, for the designers that work here, how did you go about that? How did you define the space for the people that work for you? And how easy it is for you to change hats between owner and designer to see from their perspective if they're happy, if they like the process, if they're productive?
I think the one thing that it definitely didn't work to start with.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to switch between the two roles. There was a little bit of tension between me and the team, I think, at the beginning, in that some people, like some of the people who've worked for me, have found it like very easy to understand their role and my role, and other times it's been a little bit more difficult. I think especially as I was finding my feet, I was expecting a lot from the people who I was working with that wasn't really there in their job role. So helping me work out the proposals, helping me follow up with potential clients, needing someone to talk to about the way the business was running. And actually it took about 6-7 months for me to realize that I couldn't ask that of the people who I'd hired, and that wasn't their responsibility. They had been hired as industrial designers, and that was their role.
Yeah.
And when I started to try and bring them in a little bit more to the business side of things, that's when it started to get difficult and the tension started to grow. And I think as soon as it got to the point where one of my employees in particular, I don't think he'd mind me talking about it, but he understandably wanted more. If he was expected to handle the business side of things as well as doing the design work, he wanted to be more involved, and he like a very clear understanding of, okay, I'm if not a co-founder, then something in this business that's not just a designer. And I think at that point I was just like, right, I'm not ready for that. Then that was the point where I was like, no, this is my company, and I've worked really hard on this for 18 months, and I'm not prepared to give that away to anybody yet, or ever, potentially ever will be. But it definitely gave me the kind of boost to really start properly establishing people's roles, and that's when I started writing what we're about, and really putting down on paper like what is the goal of Morrama, and then what are we working towards, and then that will help establish what the roles of the team are, and then help establish what the process is that we go through both internally and with our clients, and then from there able to really define everybody's roles in a really clear way that allowed people to understand where, yes, I'm a designer, and yes, I manage the business, but now it doesn't really seem like an issue anymore.
Again, growing pains, I'm assuming, from a young company. So what type of products have you designed so far? Tell me a bit about them, or a couple of them, like just in general.
I think the thing that people are most surprised by when you work in a product design agency is that physical product designs. That is the array of products. We didn't want to pigeonhole ourselves in just doing wearables, or just doing kitchenware, or just doing furniture, because just wouldn't have been very interesting. So we've worked on all of those things, but we've also done work for charities. We're currently designing a vaccine carrier. We've done tech products. We've done luggage. We've designed a bike. We've just launched the first of our own products, which is a cutthroat razor. So we've worked on a huge number of different projects over the last 3.5 years.
Again, it seems like you're very aware of the decisions that you make as a company, so you didn't want to pigeonhole yourself, and I find that really impressive and also very mature for such a young company, because I'm assuming that's another one of the mistakes that a lot of people do, is that they don't realize that by being good at one thing, they might be pigeonholing them in that industry for the rest of their lives. So you just mentioned that you mentioned the angle laser. That's a known product, right, from Morrama?
Yeah, that's the first of the products that we've launched under our own name rather than for a client.
And tell me about that. How do they differ? How are they different from clients' work? How is the creative process different? What's the purpose behind it?
The creative process for that was really drawn out because there wasn't the pressure of having to hit deadlines, but also it was very much a way of filling in the free time between projects. The original idea actually did come from a client project. We did a deal with the client. They didn't want to take it forwards, and they were happy for us to take it forwards in return for a small amount of work that we did for them for free. And after that, we spent probably about nearly 18 months tinkering away, for want of a better word, trying to make this work. And it was very much about the mechanism and how you could improve this as a product, but also about the aesthetic and creating something that was just very, very unique in how it looked. And then probably about December last year, maybe November last year, Andy, who's the design manager now, he was just like, guys, you can't keep wasting your time on this project. You need to do something about it, because either stop doing it because it's not productive. We're not putting anything out to the public, so it's not benefiting Morrama in any way, or launch it and see how it does. So we launched it. Because we'd been working on it very internally, we'd missed out on a massively vital step, which was the validation. Like, does it work? Does it fundamentally shave? And do people want it? We obviously had to solve the fundamental side of it. We made prototypes, gave them to people, got feedback, made some changes, and established, yes, you can shave your beard with this. Unfortunately, I can't really use it myself. Yep. As much as I wish I could. Like, it's very frustrating not being able to test your own product. So I've been very much reliant on the team for that. But so we managed to tick that box off in terms of, do people want it? The only way to really find that out was to put it out there. So we launched the Kickstarter in March, 1st of March.
How's it going so far?
It's been like a very crazy year, because we're still a design consultancy, and first and foremost, that is what we do and what we will always do. But we launched this product as a learning opportunity more than anything. We felt that we couldn't really justify launching products for clients without having launched our own. Because we didn't understand the development process or the engineering process or the manufacturing process. We've been through all of that before. But because we wanted to understand how it feels to launch a product, how it feels as a kind of how does the founder feel launching their first product, and all the little things that we don't handle. So the negotiations with the suppliers, the contracts, the logistics, distribution, the customer service, the communications, the advertising, the sales, all of those things that surround actually getting a product in the market. Yep. It's all very well having 10,000 units of a product in a warehouse, but that's not going to make you any money. In fact, all you've done is spend it. So actually understanding how you can make a money from a product was really, really interesting. And we were very, very lucky. The product, the razor was really well received by the press, and we got features in lots of really good magazines during the Kickstarter, which meant the Kickstarter was like way more successful than we could have imagined. And since then, we worked really hard with the factory in China to get the product out, made a lot of changes, had a lot of problems, but the feedback's been great. And we started selling in the US and in the UK, and running a few campaigns, lots of stuff over, obviously, towards Christmas and things. So, and it's we're not directing our full attention to it because obviously we just don't have the time. And we're just not bothered by sales. So we're running some ads here and there and making, a little bit of money, but trying to work out what we want to do with it in the new year.
And do you see? So you said it's the first in a series of products that you want to design in house. So you see yourself doing a lot more of that. Do you see split 50-50 between client work and on products, or would you see in the future 2 Morramas, for instance?
I think that we're not going to force it. Yeah. If we come up with other ideas, then we will obviously take them to market. I think so we did this one without any investment. We put a little bit of time in from Morrama, like without obviously receiving anything back. But all of that has been paid for, has been paid back. So we've kind of come to better than zero at this point. So there is money in the bank, and it potentially to fund other product development. As to whether we're ready to do that just now, I think we'll probably just stick with where we are, focus on the client work. If an idea comes along, I think the next time I do it, I'd go much, much bigger. Having gone through it now, proved that we are able to launch a product successfully, proved that we're able to be profitable from the very beginning with zero investment, I think we'd be in a much better position to get to be investable. If we wanted to really launch a bigger product, I'd put someone else's money at risk, I think. Yeah, which again, having proof that you've done it before, you can do it, that you'd be in a lot better place to do that. Again, it sounds really good. I think it's amazing that you're doing that, because once again, you're not just doing one thing and waiting to do that same thing over and over and over. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about a company, is being flexible and being smart and moving when the market moves and moving where the opportunities are. And I think that's really good. And probably a weird question, from all of the products that you've designed so far, mm-hmm. is there a favorite? I mean, obviously the Razor is a first for us, and therefore will always be close to my heart, however much stress it's caused me this year. The very, very first product we ever got on the market was a suitcase for a company called Marlon Travel in the US. And I put a lot of myself into that. I went to China for about 3 months in one year, and did absolutely everything from the very, very early design work all the way through the engineering. Me and an engineer put together the 3D files, the tooling files for every single component. We managed the bill of materials, we managed the assembly, we managed absolutely everything. Went out to China and worked in the factory with the team in China for ages, getting that product to market. So it gave me such an insight into that process. And I think, although it was again like a huge amount of hard work, it was 18 months it took to get to market. I think that again it was a first for me. So any product that ticks a new box, which you could say there's every product we've ever designed, because they're all firsts, but those two I've put a lot of myself into those, so they'll always be close to my heart.
Great. I know that you won a pencil award this year at DNAD as well. Do awards motivate you, and how do they influence your design process?
I wouldn't design for an award. It was a pipe dream, not a pipe dream, but it was a goal of ours to get an award. But the award system in general was slightly flawed in that there are awards you can get just by paying enough money, and we don't have a lot of money. So DNAD is one of those ones that doesn't cost a lot to enter, and it's obviously massively respected, highly respected. And we entered it on a whim, actually on the day of the deadline, thinking, why not? We looked at the criteria, we made sure that we ticked all the boxes and filled in all the right forms, and the fact that we won is phenomenal. Like, to be up there with Hive, Google products, Apple products, I mean, I think that we were, other than Google and Apple, I think there was only 2 other products it actually won pencils, and one of them was ours. So I mean, obviously getting that was insane. Would I like to win more? Obviously. Would I design specifically to win more awards? No. It's not the driving force. I don't think it should be for anybody, because it's very egotistical to think that you just like a big awards cabinet. But obviously, you know, we encourage clients to enter their products into awards, and who knows, we're shortlisted for another one that it will be announced in January. So I mean, obviously, my fingers are crossed, but it won't bother me either way, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed the way that we work or how people perceive us or approach us. Having an award on our cabinet, our first award in our very small trophy cabinet, but no, I'm very proud of it anyway.
In regards to your products, more and more you hear talking about being mindful about the environment, about your footprint, your ecological footprint. When you're designing a product and you have a request from a client for specific material, do you advise the client in that? Would you ever, is that something you have in your mind first of all, and then would you ever say no to a project if it would go against what you believe or your worries about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's a kind of a battle that I try not to think too much about, in that a part of me is devastated by the amount of stuff that we are producing and that we are throwing away, and that we are throwing away carelessly. And that obviously I work as a product designer making more stuff. I sleep okay at night, because I don't think about it too much, but also because I know that we do the best that we can. Essentially, if people want to develop another product, they're going to find a way. The best that we can do is guide them and educate them and help them understand the difference between processes, materials, the way that you design something to be disassembled or to be disposed of at the end of life. We wouldn't take on a project that was like fundamentally detrimental to the environment. We wouldn't just turn them away either. We would help educate their client to understand why we wouldn't work with them, and to help them understand why they shouldn't think about the project in this way, and perhaps an opportunity for them to develop a product that would be slightly, that would be better for the environment. With regards to materials, to be honest, I think that the biggest driving force, especially in the West, is that people are starting to really care about that as a selling point. Consumers are choosing products that are better for the environment. They find companies that are thinking about those things more appealing, and therefore our clients are naturally trying to use that as a USP, latching on to that as something that sets them apart from other people, in that they want to be 100% recyclable or made completely from recycled materials, or really considering the kind of the cradle to cradle lifespan of their product. And I think we don't have to really fight for it anymore. Clients are already asking for that.
It's good. It's good to see that type of change as well, because I'm sure a couple of years ago it wasn't that preeminent. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're here at where you work at the Morrama office, which is within the Us2 Adventures space and community. Why did you come here? What did you choose? Is it a good thing for the business? Was it a strategic move as well?
We used to be based at Makerversity, which is in the below ground floor of Somerset House, an amazing space, and it has workshops, and that was really, really useful for us, obviously being physical product designers. But the environment here is just like on a whole nother level. Everybody is doing something really, really interesting, whilst they're mostly digital companies, or there's some charities here. There's people developing like right on the cusp of AR and AI development. There's a company looking at the way that technology and affects your emotions and how technology can learn from emotions, and I think that's fascinating. And I think there's the general productivity and positivity in the environment has been massively beneficial for us. Whilst we don't have a workshop at our fingertips, to be honest, there's no real benefit for me sitting and tinkering, sticking bits of wood and glue together. We've got our own method of prototyping, and we've got 3D printing company that can send stuff out 24 hours. So I don't think that we've lost enough to miss our previous office, but the amount that we've gained has been amazing.
It sounds like a good trade-off. I also saw that you created a book for your company called Morrama, or Design Principles, which I believe it goes along the guidelines of what you told me earlier when you're trying to define what Morrama is and trying to materialize into that company. Was that just a way of putting that, like, your ideas into an output?
Basically just putting down on paper what we're about, but it was something that was developed by the team, so it wasn't just myself. We sat down together, we wrote down, in fact we ran we had an external branding guy come in and run a workshop with us that helped us really draw out what we believed we were doing at Morrama as individuals. And it was a really scary moment for me because I wanted to make sure that there was parallel between all of the team members, and that I had actually managed to communicate to them all what we were about and that they actually believed it. But no, it was great. We all had similar passions and similar beliefs as to what we were working towards, and I think that's just been translated now into the book, and it's a work in progress. It's the first draft. It will, and no doubt, it's already changed twice, and I think that it's something that I'd want to evolve and work on year by year. But it basically, I think it's really important to know what you're working towards and to have that written down, because those principles are stuff that we embed in every project we work on.
You also mentioned a couple of design values on that book that I really liked, and I thought it was would be something that could be interesting to talk about too. You said you always have these values when you're designing something, which is minimal, intelligent, dynamic, feasible, obvious, unique, desirable, thorough, meaningful, beautiful, simple, viable, and beautiful.
There's probably too many. Basically, I think that there's two real important ones in there. Actually, the ones that are sticking in my head, beautiful. Quite naturally, it needs to be beautiful, and there's not just what it looks like, but the experience. The way a button feels, or a piece of fabric is under your hand. How a button clicks, all those things. It needs to feel right, and then obviously what it looks like. Viable. That's a fundamental to the type of clients, that it needs to be from the real beginning. Is this viable? And obviously that involves a lot of user research as well. Like, do people want it? If people don't want it, then it's not viable. And simple, I think, is always a good one. We have I wouldn't say a motto, or even like, I don't know what you'd call it, but something that a phrase that we bat around the office sometimes, which is keep it simple, keep it safe, which is, I mean, it sounds awfully cheesy, but basically it's about, and we get a lot of clients who want to push the function and the features in a product. Like, you see them on Kickstarter all the time. The world's first this, because it does this and this and this and this and this and this. Of course it's the world's first, because nobody needs that. And they do remarkably well until they go to launch the product, because they're looking at a Kickstarter audience that wants that, they've got hordes of stuff and they want something that's different, and they want the world's first something. But actually day to day it's not important for people. And I think we're quite getting more savvy as consumers, and and we just want something that fundamentally just does its job really, really, really well. And so stripping stuff back into its kind of minimal form doesn't just make it more appealing to the consumer, but it actually makes it a lot less risky for manufacture and a lot cheaper as well.
So, talking about complexity especially in a product, like a physical product, I imagine you have clients that come over and they want something that does everything, has 200 buttons in it and lots of features. How do you deal with that relationship between their expectations and reality, and advising them on what they actually need? And how much pushback do you get from the clients? Essentially, how do you get their buy-in into realizing the best brief and the ideal product that they should actually have?
As we've got more experienced, we can rely on that experience and talk in terms of experience. It's become a lot easier to help clients understand that when we tell them that something's fundamentally not possible, they believe us. In the early days, that was a little bit more difficult because obviously the one question that's always asked is, well, have you done this before? Have you designed this before? Have you designed a toothbrush before? Have you designed a suitcase before? Have you designed a bike before? And obviously we have to say no. So there is a level of education that we have to both provide to our clients, but also to take on ourselves. So there's a huge amount of research that we do very, very quickly to just establish that what we're telling them is as close to correct as it possibly can be. There's black and whites. I mean, obviously we can turn to the marketplace for a lot of the information. If you want to make a phone that has the specs of an iPhone but that costs $150, you know that that's not feasible. If it was feasible, it would have been done already. Obviously, we need to be pushing the boundaries, though. Startups have to produce something that's innovative. Otherwise, how do they differentiate themselves from everybody else? It's important that our clients push us. Otherwise, we not to say that we would ever get complacent, but it would be easy to. And I think that we do get a fair amount of pushback, but it is just about making sure that we are educated in what's necessary surrounding their particular requirements, and we can talk, we can put that across really clearly to them. And we've definitely had clients that have been really unreasonable and really unrealistic, and they just keep coming back to us and saying, but you'll find a way, but you'll find a way, but you'll find a way. And you're like, no, we fundamentally can't find a solution to this because it's defying the laws of everything that what you're trying to achieve. It's just genuinely not feasible. So yeah, I mean, we can spot them really early on and potentially not even take the project on, but sometimes they sneak through. Yeah.
And I'm assuming that even if they do sneak through, and then, or if you lose that client, it's because it wouldn't be a good client to have around anyway, or because the product won't work, because if they're too unreasonable, just eventually the universe balances it out.
Yeah. To be honest, one of the easiest ways of validating products really early on is not just it coming from us. So we'll get them something that they can put in front of consumers, and they can really establish what the consumer really wants, whether it be visuals or a kind of 3D mock-up that does the basic functionality, or even and if that's not possible, then getting in front of, say, a manufacturer and showing them what we're looking at and getting their initial thoughts on both, is it possible to manufacture, but also what's the price point, because there's always a limit and that the client's willing to work for, and it might be a time limit, it might be a more often a financial limit, and it basically is just like, okay, you want something in 6 months for $2. There's not a lot that's going to happen.
Not going to happen, yeah. Okay, and so how long has Morrama been going for now?
3.5 years.
And do you ever see yourself going back to working for someone else?
No, never.
So, for instance, imagine that tomorrow you come to the office and Morrama exists no more, you have no clients. what would you do?
Ooh, good question. I think a dream of mine is to do more advising, to run workshops with startups to help them really understand what they're trying to achieve and create like roadmaps from there. Also just advise on obviously the stuff that I do day to day, product development, product design. I think that I would miss designing if I didn't do a lot of design work as well though. So maybe I would take up some freelance work, probably working on, big product projects for other companies. Yeah, I mean, if it really didn't exist, I think I'd go on holiday first. I haven't done that for a while.
That might be a sign that you should do. Just go on holiday anyway.
Yeah, well, I just bought a house, so I think that there's financial reasons why I can't go on holiday.
It's a good trade-off then.
Yeah.
And so you're saying that you would have to keep designing, and you would find some projects. So you never see yourself pulling back from the business and being just a manager?
I don't think I could. I don't know. I really like the management side of things. More to do with the people and the team and making sure they're happy. I very much, friends of mine have said, "Oh, well, you can take the day off. You're the boss." It's just like no. My team dictate how I need to work in when I need to work, and I need to be there for them. It's not about me, and I think so. I really love that side of things, and I think that it would be interesting to work with a much bigger team, but I can't imagine Morrama expanding to huge numbers. There's just fundamentally people don't want that many products, so there's not that much work. But I think I'd love the creative side. In terms of the other things I could do, or I would really love doing, is teaching, like the education side of things. I really love that process of going through that with the clients, educating them on that process. And I think that it would be interesting to be more involved in that in some way, whether it be running workshops to help people understand the process, product design process, or going further back than that and working in universities. But I think I'd still want to be creative.
I still have a hand in the pie. And that really connects well with my next question, which is what do you see as the future for the company and yourself as well? So you created a good company, came from freelancing, came from having free time, having freelance opportunities and clients. Eventually you created a company, it became into this solid company that you have running. What's next? You created your own products. Do you have any plans for next year or next 5 years?
We meet at the end of the year to really kind of set out our goals for the next year. Maybe if you ask me in a week, I'll have a better idea. But I mean, for me personally, I would like to start growing the company a little bit more. I mean, we're only 4, and which is great because I can really manage the workflow for 4 people quite easily. When you have more people, there's more risk. You have a big project come in, everybody's busy, and then you don't have any big projects and everybody's quiet, and that's not good for morale. But also it means that if someone was to go on holiday, the workload can be picked up really easily and it's not stressful. So it would be nice to grow a couple more people over the next 12 months. In terms of launching more of our own products, definitely something that's interesting, but we're not going to push it. I think that I would like to be in a position where I could step back a little bit more, and maybe look at offering a different type of service from Morrama, perhaps doing more advising work, going into startups, maybe not just physical product, and actually helping them decipher what they're doing, what their story is, where do they position themselves. I really enjoy that side of things as well, and also handling the pressure of starting your own business, the actual kind of emotional side of that as well, and helping understand how to how to manage that side of things as well. I mean, I'm not talking about being like a therapist or anything, but just knowing that what to expect and what's normal and when, and managing that process as well. I find that very interesting. But I think that I'd like to just keep going steadily at the pace that we're going, growing slowly, just really laying our foundations and getting a few more products in the market first.
Right, cool. And apart from that, so more on the personal level, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your career so far?
I think that the pressure that you're under when you start your own company is when you're young, and when I was like, when we first started at 23, 24, it was fun. It was kind of exciting, especially when there was two of us. It was, we always had each other. It was fine. The transition for it to being just me was really difficult, and there's a real kind of loneliness to starting your own business, to running a business by yourself, especially at design agency, consultancy. It's different if you have your own startup. There's startup meetings, there's meetups, there's accelerator programs, there's all kinds of support out there, mentoring and everything. When you're running a kind of lifestyle business or a consultancy, it's a whole different ball game, and it's like a slow grind that can really wear you down. Getting past that has been a really it's really changed me as a person, and I think has been like a really interesting and educating process. I've really learned a lot about myself, so I'd say that was that was both tough and rewarding. So
again, my next question is going to be, what was your best career decision? But I think I kind of know the answer.
Well, I mean, the best career decision was actually, creating my own career and setting up Morrama. I wouldn't change it for the world. I've often said, or say to people, I could probably earn a lot more money if I worked for another agency, another company, and did a 9 to 5 somewhere else, but I wouldn't do it.
And outside of design, what is your passion? What do you do after work?
After work, sleep. I love talking to people, having conversations like this, just learning and discussing other people's passions and things like that. I run, do a bit of yoga, play the piano, hang out a lot with my girlfriend, which is, she keeps me sane. And I think other than that, I mean, I don't try and put too much pressure on myself to really be productive in my time outside of work, because I feel like that part of my brain is very much just absorbed by work. I don't know whether that would ever change, because it's just the kind of person I am. I don't really have a magical talent that I'd love to be able to pull out the bag and be like, I've been working on this for my whole life. But no, it's not quite as interesting.
I was gonna ask you, what's the thing in your life that you're most proud of, but revisiting, I think I kind of know as well. Or it might not be. I might be wrong. I'm assuming it would be probably also creating the company, but it might be something personal that built you up to be the person that you are, that eventually led you to be a better designer as well.
What was the question again?
What's the thing in your life that you're most proud of?
The thing in my life I'm most proud of. I mean, in the broadest scope of things, yes, it would be creating Morrama. I think the thing I'm most proud of is creating a team, a kind of a workplace for the people who work at Morrama. That is, I feel like, a very productive, very creative and very open and honest environment that brings the best out of them. So I think that would be, more than anything, like what I'm most proud of, and that we all believe in the same thing and we're working towards the same thing, and it's a very really nice atmosphere within the workplace.
And just the last question, what's the most important thing you've learned outside of design in the last couple of years?
I think that especially being here, the most important thing I've learned is how important it is to look after yourself and to be aware of your like mental health as well. It's a really open and honest environment here. Everybody talks about it. There's a company called Sanctus who are doing a lot of work in helping provide mental health support for companies. And so, yeah, we talk about it a lot here. And I think that acknowledging the importance of looking after your mental health and the effect that can have on the workplace, on the people you work around, has been like a big thing for me over the last couple of years.
No, I'm absolutely happy that that's a thing that's becoming more mainstream to talk about, mental health. And I see a lot of people that are still overworked because they want to do work after their 9 to 5, and because they want to be better, they want to get awards, or they want to get more money. And I think it's really important to get to a point in your life where you realize this is enough for me. I'm happy with what I do, and I need to take care of me. Like be running, be spending time with your partner. Because if you're not well, everything around you will kind of collapse it sooner or later. So Definitely. I think it's really important that's coming to light. All right, thank you very much. It was really, really good to have this chat. I learned a lot there, and it was really nice. Where can people find you online and learn more about you and Morrama?
Well, it's morrama.com, MORRAMA. And if they want to follow me personally, I'm on Twitter. I think my handle is changed now, and I think it's Jo Morrama. Otherwise, yeah, just give me a Google, Jo, J-O, no E, Barnard, and you'll find me.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, Jo.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
This was it. It was a lovely chat that I had with Jo. Thank you so much, Jo, if you're watching this or listening this. Jo has an incredible progression story, and I love the fact that she became a business owner not for choice, but essentially it just happened. She needed a company to be able to do her own work. It was never her ambition to own the business. And that's so genuine and authentic of a designer to do that. So it was really interesting. Her work is beautiful, so I'm really looking forward to see more of work from Jo and the company as well. If you want to reach out to Jo, you can find all about her on jobarnard.com, our website. You can also see more about Morrama at morrama.com. And if you want to reach out on Twitter, Morrama Design, on Twitter it's at Morrama Design, and Jo is available on at Jo Morrama. We're also available on Twitter and Instagram at Layer Podcast. Go ahead, please follow us and like us and send us a message. If you want to send us an email to suggest people or ideas or give us any type of feedback, we're at hello@Layer Podcast. As I said, please do let me know what you thought about this episode. Is this type of chat interesting? Would you like to see more of this? Would you like to see different things? Was it boring? How can I make it better? Please give me feedback so I can improve on this. We're also on YouTube for the video version of this podcast. So go on YouTube and search for Layer Podcast and like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you very much for listening and watching. And I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.